Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Journey to Purpose. With me today, I have the fascinating Dr. Joy Pedersen. She is a spiritual healer, coach, and author. Joy, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Did I say your last name right? That's actually one question I should have asked you before.
Pedersen.
Pedersen. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Very simple question. First of all, where in the world are you?
Sarasota, Florida.
Hopefully nicer weather than we've had here today in the UK, I imagine.
Actually, it was raining today, which we really needed.
Oh,
So,
okay. I mean, it swings and roundabout, right?
yes.
So, what is a spiritual healer and a spiritual coach?
Well, the spiritual healing is really about identifying the hidden causes of people's blocks and then actually clearing the energy, those obstacles. And I think the coaching is really about helping fine tune people's ability to do some of that for themselves.
Interesting. What brought you into this field in the first place? Maybe taking a step back.
I was always interested in spiritual topics, but when I was working in Hollywood, I was at Paramount Studios doing television publicity, and people were calling to ask me how I got my job. And quite frankly, I got my job relatively easy in comparison to what they were sharing were their struggles. So I was really curious about why it was easy for me, because I was living in New Jersey on the other coast at the time and went to California with the idea, well, when in Rome, I should work for a motion picture studio in LA, which is really an entertainment capital. And didn't really have contacts, didn't really know a lot about what to do or how to do it. It sounded like it was fun. But I had been a paralegal in New Jersey and got a job at an entertainment law firm when I first got there. And I asked someone, I said, I'd like to work in entertainment. What do you think I should do? She says, oh, I think you'd be great in PR. And I'm like, what's that? I was really green. She just described celebrities and parties. And I go, oh, that sounds like fun. I think I'll do that.
Sign me up.
So then I said, okay, well, what's the best studio to do this at? They said Paramount. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this over there. But I had no clue. So I went to UCLA and I learned about journalism, and, I was asking questions all the time, and I was networking. I didn't even know networking was a term. It was the process that I was using to get a job. And I had no choice but to ask for help because I was clueless. So during that process, I got enormous support and help, guidance from others. And I got a job at Paramount not too long after I started that process. I got my foot in the door. And then once I got there, I'm going, okay, I want to work in publicity. And I still was working in legal at the time. How do I do that? And again, was continuing to network, and I got this great job in television publicity. So I wanted to give back because everyone was so generous to me. And I wanted to learn what set me apart. And I learned about the law of attraction, like attracts like, and what you believe and think about and what your emotions are aligned with supports your outcomes. So I'm like, okay, great. I'm going to teach that. I started my business, Express Success, at that time, started teaching the law of attraction, and shortly into it realized applying consistent activities and techniques would garner the results that we wanted in certain areas, but not all. So I said, there's got to be something missing. So I looked for another solution and was introduced to spiritual healing, and the idea that it's the subconscious where we have the blocks. It's our memory bank and computer where our programming is really dictating our outcomes. So I switched gears because I thought this was really a missing piece in the law of attraction working in your favor, because it was always working. The law of attraction operates behind the scenes no matter what. But if you want to be more specific about the results that you want and put forth specific efforts, if you don't clear the subconscious first, then that's what's going to be manifesting. So if you want a red Ferrari and you go, okay, I'm going to go get that red Ferrari and I want to manifest that red Ferrari, but your subconscious is going, I really prefer blue. And, or I can't afford that. How am I going to get that? And it's going to take a lot of effort. And all this dialogue that goes on behind the scenes in your mind is really what is going to generate the results versus you're just going to manifest that red Ferrari. So we have to make the high self, the inner child, or the low self, and our conscious mind all congruent. And so that's what started the process. Is I felt I needed to help people with that, and also teach people how to work with their own inner family, that higher self, the low self, and getting all parts and pieces congruent.
Fascinating. First of all, kudos for casually dropping in that you worked at Paramount Studios. Love that. And I feel that's a whole other conversation one day. Uh, so it's really interesting what you say, because when I was in my 20s, I was probably too stupid to know any difference. And so what I would do is go, I want to go and do a thing. And I would do that thing. Everything from, living in a foreign country, going out to Thailand to study martial arts, all sorts of things I just did. Didn't think about it. I found in my 30s, when I kind of hit like adulthood, because 20s didn't count, it didn't come so easily anymore. And then in my 40s, I reflected going, it's because I now have doubt. I now have fear. And that naive optimism of the 20-year-old me got replaced by, the judgment of society, the harshness of being an adult, and in this world where, adulting can be hard work. But then in my 40s, I've kind of realized that actually that stuff hasn't changed. It was, as you say, it was all the inner workings getting clogged up with stuff. But I never thought about it in terms of a spirituality. I just thought about it in terms of, I just didn't know any different when I was younger. So I didn't think that it would never work out. So I'm curious from a spiritual point of view then, do you see that distinction? Does it get worse as we get older if we don't fix this problem now? I guess is what I'm trying to ask.
Well, actually, I loved what you had said, because I could relate to that in my own path that I was sharing. I didn't get the memo that it was supposed to be hard to break into the entertainment industry. Had I gotten that memo, it would have been more difficult, because that's what I would have believed to be true. I didn't know any better. I was naive. And so I just went and did it. So I agree with you in some ways that it's what we're taught. And then as you get older, then you start learning all of these things that are difficult, or you shouldn't do this, or this is the way you're supposed to do it. And it's interesting. I get from Source that the best thing we can do today is let go of everything we think we know, because that's what stands in our way. It's what we think we know. Whether it was even true yesterday, it may not even be effective or appropriate for today, because things change in the world. And so often we're following teachings that are ancient. They're traditions passed down by our ancestors, things that we learned in our past lives, all sorts of junk gets in and cogs up the wheel for just manifesting what you want effortlessly.
Interesting. How do you let go when you're carrying so much baggage? Or I'm making the assumption we're carrying so much baggage. So how do you get? Well, yeah, I'm pretty certain we all are by this stage. How do you get people to let go? Because also, from a therapist point of view, I find that some people like the discomfort. They like the pain because it's familiar. It is a comfort blanket, even though it's a painful one. But the thought of letting go of that pain, going through some different pain to get to the other side, that seems just as scary. So how do you approach that?
It's interesting. Letting go in some regards is easy, because it's just about letting go. It's just, you drop whatever is in your hand, you've let go. But because there's so many complex things in the psyche, it isn't necessarily easy to let go. When I do a spiritual healing session with somebody, what's nice, makes it nice for actually the other people, is that I get to look at what is going on. It might be this lifetime or a past life, read the emotions and the thoughts around it, and then clear it. I clear it for them. There are times when I also do things generically where I'm saying, let go of all anger from the beginning of time. And I'll tell a client, remind me of that next week. I want to look at anger again. And then I'll ask, did we clear it all or not? And sometimes I get no. And then I have to talk to the inner child, and I find that they still feel guilty. They have a judgment about it. So sometimes it's working with that inner child to say, it's okay to let it go. You don't need to be punished. You don't need to judge any other people. Judgment is part of the challenge in people letting go, because they're thinking they're wrong, somebody else is wrong. It was painful. Because it was painful to them or others, it's harder to let it go because of either that guilt or blame. And sometimes we have to work a little bit deeper and allowing that to go. And really forgiving yourself and others is the key to probably all of it, because Source can't even help us fully heal what we can't fully forgive. When we fully forgive ourselves and others, then Source has the opportunity to heal it completely. But it's a challenge a lot of people have. Letting go is a sticking point for many people. If we could just let it go and say, okay, that didn't work, I'm done, let's just move on and have a fresh start and have like a clean whiteboard and put only on that what is relevant and necessary and important for now, it would be a lot easier for most of us. But most of us have sticking points. We can't let it all go as easily as we'd like.
Absolutely. When you talk about spirituality, I kind of get more of a spirituality of the soul vibe from you, you know, because spirituality covers a lot of things for many different people. So could you sort of talk through the spirituality that you refer to, if in your words, perhaps?
Okay. So I believe that we are all made up of one energy, ultimately, and there's the highest light or source that is in operation of that. And then there's also, we're a world of duality. So there's both light and dark. So when we're aligning with the highest light, we're aligning with the spirit of and the essence of all there is. But we can also be aligning with the dark side, and that's also spirit. But it's really our consciousness and where we choose to align our energies and our perspective. But we're operating in a physical world that's created out of duality. And then there's the non-physical world, which is really more spirit, but it's comprised of many different elements. And then I think what often is confused is religion, which religion is certain groups of individuals who have come together and put their opinion and perspectives together on what's right, correct, and a way of connecting with spirit. And it's not to make religion wrong, bad, or whatever. They're all different. They're all different paths, hopefully really towards the same end, which is really connecting each individual to the highest light that's available. And their paths are very varied. Their traditions are very varied. If it works for somebody and it helps them bring them closer to the light, it's wonderful.
Definitely. I love how you phrase that, and also recognizing, I always think with religion, we just like to create problems where there aren't any. The reason why I like how you talk about spirituality is I think that's ultimately what everyone is trying to get to, this higher position, the high road, the better place, the good place, to quote a lovely TV show I like. And you're right that we have this duality, the bad side. And I think my problem with religion sometimes is that they kind of make out that if you have a bad side, therefore you're already imperfect. But the whole point is we are imperfect. We do have a good side and a bad side. And it's just understanding that within ourselves and accepting that any choice can go one of a number of ways. And that choice is based on our environment, our upbringing, our belief system again. But it doesn't mean that you are irredeemable if you ever make a bad decision. It just means that's something you have to work harder on.
And that's what we're here to do, is really work out some of the issues that we probably created in other timelines and time frames, past lives, whatnot, that we didn't know any better. This is a world of experimentation. When God came to me one day and he explained his origins, it was really his awakening. He didn't know he existed, and then he knew he existed. But what was that? You know, if you become conscious, you now have to figure things out and learn what is and what's difference between you and something else. But if you had nothing else to compare yourself with, you start creating things to learn yourself. So the world of duality and this world of experimentation and experience, we get to learn who we are in the face of adversity, how loving we can be, kind we can be, or a jerk we can be at times when we're pushed and we don't necessarily respond in the highest and best manner. But each time we are created, we are learning something more. And if you come out of an unconscious state in the beginning of time, as you grow and evolve, you become more consciously aware of what works, what doesn't work, what are best practices. You know, companies put together a list of best practices for their own employees. And where do they come up with those? From trial and error. It's no different in the world overall. You know, try to do something, you try to fix something, and you realize, well, that didn't work. have to try something else. And then ultimately you have an idea of, oh, this is what works best. So in the process of connecting with source and asking source, what are the best practices here? I want to create something. What is the best thing to do? How do I best do that? Or if I have a problem, asking source, what do I need to know, do, or clear about it, will give you the best solution. We often have done things on our own without asking, so it's a crapshoot what the results are. And then what we're here to do now is rectify some of that.
I love that. I think that's so true. And probably people don't hear it put that way very often. And so we go back to the whole self-judging, self-reflection, thinking I've made this wrong decision, or I didn't get it right the first time, therefore I am flawed and therefore I'll never get it right. And that also leads me to sort of my next question around, so you mentioned past lives again. Again, this can be a controversial subject for some, believe or not believe, but what does it, in your work, what does it look like, and how do you see it represented?
Find that many of our problems started in past lives, as well as many of our guides at this life, in this juncture, or in this lifetime, are some of our past lives. They're here to rectify some of the things that they've learned through their experience, or they know they created some karma. So some of our problems that we're experiencing now were created in other lifetimes. But I'll go back and look for a solution to somebody's problem now, and I'll be taken to a lifetime, and I'll be able to read their thoughts and emotions. And often the person says, I still think that way, I still feel that way, or I still operate that way. So a lot of our programming, thoughts and emotions that we didn't let go of in that experience because we held on to the traumas within and they remain within our memory bank, they now feed the experience we now have, because we're ultimately one soul that has had numerous experiences. So it's like if you are an actor and you're in a play and you come in and you play this character this time and you play that character another time and some other character another time, and you accumulate all of that to learn some of those best practices, what worked, what didn't work. But if you come in and play a traumatic role, sometimes if you haven't let that go, or you cause somebody else pain and suffering, you may come down back to understand what it was like to be the victim, say, of that situation. And now you're experiencing and learning from a whole other perspective, and you go, yep, that didn't feel so good. I'm sorry I did that. And they may not have done something sometimes intentionally or realize how negative it was, but as they learn that, they realize, no, that's not the best practice, and I should do something a little differently. So it's all learning experiences.
Interesting. Do you know what? I read a study recently around DNA, because I'm that kind of cool person, and it was around generational trauma and how they found in people's, was it the second, third generational DNA, and it's of trauma from those two generations back or even beyond. And that's when I kind of shifted my approach to going, I'm still don't think I'm educated enough to understand all the past life stuff at this stage in what I'm doing, but I can definitely see the science behind the trauma that's carried at the DNA level. And it therefore, from that point of view, it tracks that, well, if you've got it in your DNA, then why can't you have a past life? So I'm getting my head around it. But it is amazing. We just don't realize how much of the trauma we carry is from generations before us. And I look at my parents, so UK post-war generation, they grew up with rationing. I think the UK stopped rationing in the 50s. My parents were born in 1949, and they remember the end of rationing. That affects their mindset to how they grew up, how they valued things. And I see that in my behaviors now. And in terms of some things I think, why on earth would you waste that? And other things I kind of probably got the more modern view of, it's disposable, it's all good. But you see these things at a conscious level, but you don't know what the subconscious is doing with it. And I think that's where what you do comes in so interesting, because the subconscious, as you said already, or the light level, the energy level, we're not always aware of really what's going on there until we find a way of digging into it.
Yeah, we often are clearing issues that occurred to our lineage, and they have had traumas and experiences just like we have had in past lives, and it gets passed down through the DNA. And when you clear it, what's interesting that I have found, every time you do a clearing, it's setting free everyone else that was involved. And when you're doing it on an ancestral level, because even when you're in your past lives, you then have descendants. When you clear those incidences in the time they occurred, you can set everyone free, including those descendants and everyone else you offended or anyone else that hurt you or you hurt. And you give freedom really to everyone. And then that doesn't have to get passed down any longer.
No, that's amazing. What kind of people do you work with for this kind of work? Do you have a specific person you enjoy working with the most?
Well, I noticed when I first started this work that everyone seemed to be an old soul with a high purpose with blocks. I don't necessarily advertise for that. That's what seems to come.
What does that look after? I was going to say, wanted, old soul with blocks. Apply here.
Exactly. But I deal with a lot of business owners, and I clear them, their children, their spouses, their sometimes their employees, their business, because energy permeates everything. And everyone that people work with or are in a relationship with any kind have karma with them, past lives with them. In energy work, we can also clear the future. So if they have a meeting or if they're going on a vacation or somebody's having a wedding, we clear a lot of that in advance because it will help alleviate some of the problems. Anytime you clear energy, you can clear it from past, present, or future because there's really no time, which I find challenging to even understand that myself, because everything does seem like it has a past, present, or future. I do things in a private session, and I also do things in a group session where I have a membership and I'm clearing a larger group of people from around the world. And it's really people that are more spiritually open. They're wanting to know more. They're wanting to optimize their lives, get the debris out of the way, know what's going on in the world and how they can best navigate. Really, sometimes it is world issues that they're concerned about or basic issues. So they're coming to me for money, relationships, things like that. They need more confidence. They have a speaking business and they want to clear the path for speaking more effectively and optimizing their audiences, things like that. So it's incredible the varied interests that I end up serving. It makes it interesting. And it's always interesting to see where the sticking point really started. And it's such a gift to be able to clear it for people.
In group settings, do you not find that you get do you ever get confused about where the energy block is coming from? Like that person there or that person there, or does it get confusing or is it very clearly defined for you?
I think I'm just kind of shown, my guides might show me where to go, but what's a sticking point sometimes is when there's darkness involved. Sometimes that's really challenging because I have to go through dense energies to be able to see what's on the other end of it. And some of what I've seen on the other end is just horrible. I've cleared a lot of past lives of persecution, torture, really negative things that have occurred for people. And then on the real dark side, it could be clearing like demons and devils and all sorts of really nasty stuff that might be attached to a storyline. Sometimes I get into clearing contracts that people may have made themselves that are no longer serving them, or contracts on light workers that are sabotaging light workers specifically that were taken out by darkness, and clearing that helps set them free from dynamics they had no idea were holding them back.
How do you keep yourself safe from that negative, dark energy?
I think it's because that's a specialty and a calling that I have. My mission is really to turn dark to light and help everyone reach the highest light. So I'm well protected. It's not that I don't get exhausted from it or challenged by it at times.
Right, yeah.
But it's just the specialty that I seem to have. So I can look at the dark, I can clear the dark. And, after doing this for decades, sometimes it is exhausting.
I can imagine. So you've also written quite a few books, I think. Is that right?
I've written several. I'm actually working on my third. Archangel Michael came to me originally asking me to write a book which became Wisdom of the Guardian, Treasures from Archangel Michael to Change Your Life. And this book changed my life. And when anybody reads it, he's with the reader, which is kind of nice. And that was really his perspective on how to look at life and simplify it with prayers and things like that. And then after he and I had been working together, because at the same time he asked me to join him in a healing practice, we ended up clearing a lot of history, biblical history, world history, and we got to a point where we cleared enough darkness that we could open up heaven on earth. And my second book, which is Clear Your Past and Change Your Future, was really about that journey and how we came to opening up heaven on earth, which is March 30th. And we're coming upon that as we speak. It's another anniversary, but that was in 2013. And it's a hard sell to explain to people that heaven on earth has been opened. But what it really is that our world was run by darkness. And after heaven on earth opened, we had the light coming through and the light of God running the show, and everything started transitioning. Now you see a lot of darkness coming to the surface, but it's really because a lot of karma is coming up. We're clearing up all of the old issues that we've been facing or dealing with that often were in the closet. Now they're out of the closet and everybody's facing, oh my God, this is what's been going on. So it's more, people are becoming aware of what's been operating behind the scenes, but we're moving towards the light. And the better we get at cleaning up our own stuff, our own duality within, whatever past lives where we've made mistakes or contributed to the problems in the world, we can move things forward faster.
That's really sort of an interesting proposition to make. And as I say, it probably feels quite difficult to comprehend for somebody who isn't in this field, who doesn't necessarily follow it. But looking at it in terms of world events, so as a woman, I feel there's been a backlash towards controlling women around the world. And would you put that in the case of going, this is this dark energy coming back up, trying to get control? Now we've got to a place where actually we realize that women are just like equals to men, and isn't that wonderful? And it's a reactionary to that. Would that be how you would sort of catch that?
There's a lot of spiritual warfare going on. So that's behind the scenes. Then there's also egos at play. There's old regimes that want to stay in control. The patriarchal society has been around for eons, but now people are raising their hands and saying that's not acceptable. And sometimes there is that battle between the old and the new before you can find that balance again. The divine feminine is coming back in, and there's even the conversation about like the divine feminine is going to be in control or have a place over the divine masculine, but really it's to bring in balance. We're all supposed to be in balance between the masculine, between the feminine, between giving, between receiving. That's all to be in balance. And we've been out of balance. So when you try to rebalance things, it can be shaky.
I love that analogy. It's not quite the same, but I'm reminded of a Canadian advert I saw recently where there was a peaceful revolution and women rose to power, and they have the first world meeting and there's basically no problems because we're all just talking it out and getting on with it. And it's that feminine energy. But I also agree with you that ultimately it's not about one above the other one. It is about that balance, because we are two halves. And whether it's in personal relationships, business relationships, whatever, we're always stronger when we are together.
Mm-hmm.
So you said March 30th was that the one in 2013, or is there another one coming?
Well, every anniversary on March 30th, I celebrate Heaven on Earth Day. It's a day of ascension. Source had said that every year on that date, there was going to be another ascension, and whoever's ready to ascend can ascend at that time. All of actually Heaven on Earth, the new golden age, new earth, all of those concepts are based on an individual's level of awareness and consciousness. So it's all an inside job. I think people are waiting for them to be able to wake up and the world's going to have shifted dramatically. And it's going to happen to them. What they don't realize, it's going to happen through them. And it's everyone's responsibility to choose that highest light and do whatever they can to ascend to those experiences, to experience the new golden age, to experience heaven on earth and what that's like, which is more love, joy, peace, balance, freedom, and abundance. The new earth is a reflection of the possibilities that are available to those who ascend to them, which means letting go of all the baggage. So if you look at a hot air balloon and you're carrying those sandbags, you're not going to ascend very far. The more you can let go of those sandbags or that garbage, the baggage that you carry, the higher you'll ascend. And then what do you see when you ascend is something that looks very differently than when you're in the muck. So it's all an inside job.
Do you know what? I think even if people listening don't believe in, the heaven on earth, I think the message that you have there is really important about it comes from within. Too many people are looking for other or someone else to come and change them, but change comes from within us. Mm-hmm. No matter where with the situation, we have to change. And I find it really interesting in a world that is constantly changing, this resistance to change, because it's like, but the earth is spinning, it's moving every day. Like, seasons change, plants grow, plants die. Like, you can't stop change. So why do we as humans fear it so much? Why do we fight it so much? And I don't have an answer for it. But I think the point is, whether people believe in heaven or earth or not, we have to accept that change should come from within.
Definitely. Meditation is such a great tool for the individual to go within their heart and just be with themselves. And through their heart, there's doorways and opportunities to understand so much wisdom. And it's such a great tool that if people just learned how to go within and sit within themselves, things could shift dramatically.
Absolutely. No, this has been super interesting. If people want to learn more, want to join your group or work with you, how can they find you?
Well, they can look at the group through sacredcircle.live. They can get gifts. There's free gifts that I have at giftsfromjoy.com. And then they can also connect with me on joypedersen.com.
I'll make sure they all go in the show notes.
Thank you.
It's been really interesting. I really appreciate your time, and thank you so much for sharing what you do, and just keep doing it. That's all I can say. Thank you.
It's been delightful.
Thank you.